Bless you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here at the Metropolitan Pavilion, and I also welcome everyone who's watching online. My name is John Tui, and I will be hosting this morning's very exciting panel. What's going on here? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. We have three wonderful guests, Yagesh Trivedi, Suzanne Hendricks, and Luke Burgess, and they are here to speak with us about the metaverse, influencers, and cryptocurrencies. And they will be trying to dispel some of the ignorance that at least I have. My relationship with technology is best evinced by the fact that I have all my notes on index cards, which I wrote with a plume pen next to an oil lamp. So they'll be trying to dispel some of the ignorance that some of us feel, some of the uncertainties, some of the puzzlement that some of us feel in front of these three things. So here's how we'll go. So I'm going to introduce each of our speakers individually. They'll speak about their particular phenomenon that they're going to talk about, and then we'll have a conversation, and it's going to be fantastic. So Yagesh, we're going to start with you.
Sure.
All right. So Yagesh Trivedi is a professor of digital marketing and innovation at Swansea University in Wales, United Kingdom, and is also currently leading the International Journal of Information Management as its editor-in-chief. In his career, he has cooperated with various institutions from Australia, India, Malaysia, Mauritius, Pakistan, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom. And in recent years, he mainly investigates social media, knowledge management, marketing, and supply chain. He's also the lead author on a very, very interesting paper on the metaverse, which is why we invited him here. Mm-hmm. So, Yagesh, welcome. And I'm going to start off by asking you, thanks to science fiction epics like Tron, Ready Player One, a lot of us have an idea of what the metaverse should be. And the reality tends to be a little less, or a little, it doesn't quite fit the image we have. So I'm asking you, what is the reality of the metaverse today, and where do the builders hope to take it in the next year or two?
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And greetings, everyone. Namaste, those who are online, and obviously those who are here. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for inviting me here. One thing you might be wondering, why we are here actually, why we are talking metaverse and social and crypto in this gathering. Well, I think it's very, very important and very relevant actually, in my view. Everyone may have their own perspective. The metaverse is kind of jungle. That's how it is at the beginning. No governance, no legal restrictions, nothing. So anyone can go there and do anything. So how actually we behave? How we make sure it's more safer and a place where everyone can go and have things to do what they want to do without being intimidated or being bullied or being harassed, Ethics, religion, philosophy. I think if we have element of these, we would not be doing anything wrong. And this is perfect place, actually, to talk about, to tell what are the dangers of these technologies, and then, actually, let you decide how we should shape these kind of new technological innovations, right? So that's why we are here. That's my own perception. Now, obviously, John said what it is. We all know. We all probably have heard the term metaverse, right? And we all also have our own perception about metaverse, what it is. And one thing I'm sure, we all also don't know what metaverse is, including those who are building metaverse. Honestly, because there is no metaverse yet. It's still in its very early stage of development. We have proto-metaverse, which I will talk about. They are precursor of metaverse, but we don't have actual metaverse that we are thinking would be the metaverse going forward, okay? So what is metaverse? Let me just put simply, metaverse is a three-dimensional, immersive, interoperable, virtual environment. That's what metaverse is. So three-dimensional, like we are sitting here. If we go in metaverse, we will feel exactly the same, right? And it's immersive. You know, when you go on social media, you do things, you interact with others, but you don't feel part of it. But when you are in metaverse, you will feel part of it, like you are here. I can connect with you, I can see you, and same way you will see in metaverse too. It's interoperable. I mean, you don't want the metaverse be like today's internet, right? And when I say today's internet, I mean social media. So you have Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, many other channels and platforms. What happens when you want to be part of those? Every time you go and you create your profile, your digital identity, right? Without that, you can't be part of it. So that pain that you have to now, go and put all your details and then you join that platform. Metaverse will be different. Metaverse will have one digital identity for you. At least that's what's been conceptualized. That you will have one identity. Means your avatars, yeah? Your avatars will be your profile. It will embody your characteristics, your persona within it. And that avatars is not going to be specific to each metaverse, right? It's going to be same, at least ideally, that it will be going to be same for all metaverses, okay? So basically, once you have created, it will go everywhere. You will be present through that particular embodiment in all metaverses, okay? So this is why it's interoperable. So is it already these things there in metaverse? Any platform is there where you can see these things? I mean, immersiveness is there. If you go to Roblox or Fortnite or many other, you will find immersiveness. You will feel that you're part of that. You will interact with others as you interact in real life. But is it, this interoperable things is there? No, it's not there. And that's why we say metaverse is not there yet. It will take a few years. And I'm very skeptical about that aspect, if that will ever happen, because obviously, who is leading the development of metaverse? Commercial organizations. They have their own interest. And they don't want, obviously, to in same place and lose their competitive advantage. Yeah? So metaverse is not there. Immersive, because the interoperable aspect of the system is not there. So, in a sense, digital version of our world can offer people, opportunity to work, socialize, learn, play, and create, as we do in real life. Okay? So there are two things I want to highlight. When you say metaverse, basically you say you're going to have a sense of reality. You're going to feel like real. And this is a paradox, isn't it? That you're giving up your reality and you want to feel like how reality looks like. That's a strange thing to do. Yeah? Second thing, obviously, if you look at the novel snow crash that came in 1992, they actually conceptualized it as the metaverse. Not metaverses, the metaverse. So obviously, at this moment, there is no the metaverse, it's the metaverses. And I think next 10 years, perhaps there will be no the metaverses. It will be obviously just the metaverses, you know? So that kind of distinction should be very clear. People generally talk and use the metaverse and metaverses interchangeably, which is not correct, okay? And obviously, how you access metaverse in today's world. I mean, at the moment, you can use even computer monitors, your mobile phone, and obviously VR headsets. These are the gateway to enter into the metaverse. But in real sense, metaverse is actually not when you are using the computer and monitor. It should be immersive. When you're using computer, it cannot be immersive, okay? So going forward, when we see proper metaverses, that will be mainly through the VR devices. Some might be AR, augmented reality devices, you know, goggles, and some might be the virtual reality devices, like the VR headsets that we have. So those things are there. Okay, just to ensure I'm in time. And I mean, I talked about different differences between metaverses, so I'm not going to kind of extrapolate further on that. But I want to talk about a little more about state of the metaverse, okay? So many of us think that metaverse is a new thing. No, it's not. I mean, the term itself was coined in 1992. But actually, the first metaverse, many of you probably know, is the Second Life, right? Many of you may have heard. It's the Second Life, which came in 2003 and is still thriving. Lots of people are using it, which provide you opportunity to create your avatars, and through that, you can socialize and you can interact with others in virtual world. And also, the Second Life provide venue for virtual conferences. This kind of conference actually can happen in the metaverse, in the Second Life. So this was kind of the first one. And then you can see number of them has come up. So Decentraland, for example. I mean, many of you may have bought land in that, right? In 2022, $2 billion worth land has been bought in the Decentraland, which is a metaverse based on blockchain, okay? So it's a decentralized, and user, whatever they buy and build, they can actually own those things on that. So they can build a structure, and they can build buildings and real estates, and they can sell those things in Decentraland. So that already exists and thriving, actually. We also have VR chat. In VR chat, again, it's a metaverse. You can create your avatars. You can create also virtual worlds. And you can monetize your skills, like you monetize in social media, for your own benefit. The Sandbox. Sandbox is another popular one, which is already there, but they are obviously building further that in future. So I have been given indication that I should quickly wind up. But so yeah, so these are the kind of things. In conclusion, the metaverse is not there. Its precursor is there, while its builders like Meta, like many others, even Apple is in the same game. Microsoft is also trying to, take part of share of this world. They all hope to build something that is fully immersive, that is fully interoperable, and that is three-dimensional, where we can be as we want to be. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you. Very interesting. And we'll get back to some of these things. Susanna, you're up.
Ooh, I gotta top that.
Here behind. Suzanne Hendricks is a globally recognized influencer and entrepreneur with millions of followers across their public channels on platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and YouTube. Her podcast, The Good Life, co-hosted with her husband, Stevie Hendricks, has had more than 21 million downloads. Celebrated equally for her beauty sense and for her inspiring message on The Good Life, she stands among the elite as a true social pioneer. And Suzanne, I've followed especially your YouTube videos, and they're really fascinating. And so it occurred to me as I was watching them, like, this woman started with 0 followers at one point, and now she has millions of followers. It's very impressive. And so based on that, I want to ask you, what is it that an influencer actually does? Especially
right.
now. Like, what do you do? Because it's like,
isn't that what we all ask?
And also, because it's like, it's obviously a lot of work, but like, what does all that involve? And also, is the term influencer, do you like that term? Do you think it's an accurate description of what you're really doing?
Right. I think not one. If another influencer was up on this stage, we'd probably have 2 totally different responses as to what we do and who we are and the titles that we go by. I think the term influencer is rather a new term, but the word influence is not. Every single person in this audience has their own spheres of influence in your community, in your household, whether or not an Instagram profile shows that or the number of followers that you have. Each and every single person in this room actually has that ability to influence. I think for me, I started this journey over a decade ago before, it became all of this that you were talking about, that I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so the future, and it's frightening too, For me, I see myself as a content creator. That's ultimately what I went to college for. I studied journalism with the heart and the intent that I loved connecting with people, and I loved how the power of stories allows us to do that. I never knew in a million years that those stories would be sharing my own personal stories and experience through the lens of these different platforms, but that's where God has sort of led my career, and it's been really cool and unexpected. But I was studying college to ultimately tell stories, and I think that's where there's so much power in the stories that we share and the stories that we create, where you can reach people, you can connect with people. So that's what always tugged at my heart, and that's why I thought I wanted to get into broadcast journalism and do that whole bit. And then I started a blog because I loved fashion and beauty. This was before I had kids, when I had a lot of time to, dive into all these things. And I just remembered it was like, yes, it was 0 followers. I think the views that I had were like, my family, my grandma, my aunts in the Middle East were probably supporting and clicking things. But, you start out with nothing. But I guess I treated it as if there was 1 million people watching when there was no one. And I wanted to challenge myself to take this thing seriously, because I knew that the women who I was meeting in Los Angeles, which is where I lived at the time when this journey started, I realized these women are, it looks like it could be a lucrative business. I'm seeing these girls share their stories and how this is their full-time job. And for me, it was figuring out, well, how do I do that? And it was years and years of digging and searching and praying and trying to go to events and network, and it's so awkward when you walk in and you don't know anyone, and I'm like, you got to do this, it's part of it, and all those little things, I believe, were stepping stones, because they opened doors and opportunities that you kind of don't have answers for how those doors open, but you were in the right place at the right time, and you put in the work behind it. You didn't give up. And so fashion and beauty is where it started, and then I started to show more face and sharing some of the things in life that I was going through, because believe it or not, offline, you got a real life that you have to cultivate, that you have to nurture. And for me, it was at a time in my life when I was still figuring out who I was. I was still trying to get to know myself. I was like 23, 24 years old. So I was going through the journey of navigating social media, trying to be somebody that I felt like this community that I was starting to grow needed me to be. And I was, in a sense, really also not trying to lose that part of myself and just discovering who I am. And so it was amazing when I started sharing more of just life and just being as authentic as I could. That's when it wasn't just about growing the followers, it was about how do you keep them once you grow a community online, especially in today's landscape as we've seen algorithms smack us in the face and the ebbs and flows of all of these platforms. It can be consuming and overwhelming, and I think when you can, put in the work, but also more importantly, when you know your why. Like, why am I showing up every day? It no longer becomes about the excitement of growing followers. It's like I hit that million, and it feels like, oh, what a milestone. Once you get there, you're like, okay, now what? You have to know where your heart, the direction is. And so for me, it became the encounters I was having with the women that I was talking to online, the people I was speaking out to, creating content for, and then ultimately discovering, like, if I'm really going to do this for real, I need to serve this community. I need to be here for those women by being completely authentic in the season of life that I'm in. So nowadays, you're going to see a lot of videos and content of me with my daughters, because I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old and a third one on the way. And it's like, it's a boy this time, so 2 girls and a boy. My husband's like, yeah. But I've found that in sharing parts of my life now in my family, it's become my business in a sense, and then you can raise the eyebrow and wonder, well, how much do you share of your life? How much are you comfortable with? And I have found a good balance, but for me personally, as an influencer, content creator, I feel like there is this generation right now, they need to see what marriage looks like. They need to see what family can look like. And if I can hopefully emulate that while also sharing that I'm a girl with dreams as big as my hair, it's kind of flat today, but, I would love to be able to lend my experiences in my life through these platforms to do that and to help hopefully inspire women and men and also just help them cultivate a life that they can love every day, despite not being where you want to be, because that's the journey we're all on ultimately. Yeah. So that's really ultimately what has led me here to this chair. 10 years ago, if you told me I was going to be sitting here with these guys, I mean, I don't know nothing about crypto and meta. I'm just like overwhelmed by it because I'm like, I don't want to lose the real life human experiences, but I'm also very intrigued. So I just feel really honored and blessed that my path has led me here today to be able to even talk about the influencer space. And it's just continuing to grow and evolve, my life and the influencer life. So I'm just really happy to be here.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I see why you have over 1 million followers.
It's because of my husband. He can do any accent in the book. He's a comedian, I'll tell you that. So it's probably him that they're here for.
So Luke, hello down there. Thank you for your patience here. So Luke Burgess is a veteran entrepreneur, author, and educator. He is currently the director of programs at the Sokolchis Center for Principled Entrepreneurship at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., where he is also a clinical professor of business. He's the author of several books, among which is the award-winning Wanting, The Power of Mimetic Design in Everyday Life, now translated in 16 languages. He lives in D.C. with his wife, Claire. And Luke, I've seen you on many podcasts now, watching, and you're very interesting. You're a very interesting guy. You're very interesting thoughts. And I want to ask you, cryptocurrencies are all over the headlines these days for good and a lot of bad now. But it's very possible to watch and read these things and really still have no idea, at least if you're me, have no idea what a cryptocurrency really is. Mm-hmm. So I ask you to embrace the challenge of addressing my ignorance in 10 minutes.
Me too.
and tell me, what are cryptocurrencies and how do they function?
Thanks, John. If you were at the opening event last night, you know that John requested 200,000 cryptocurrencies
And I
in
didn't
compensation for moderating this panel. But he didn't say what kind.
That's right.
So, John, I can give you the 200,000 after this talk, but it'll be worth about $5, and you won't be able to do anything at all with it. So, I think we should start exploring what is cryptocurrency by just understanding what is currency first. Then we'll get to the crypto part. So, currencies, money, is, I think, one of the most important innovations of humanity. Not just a financial innovation, but one of our most important innovations, period. And traditionally, money or currency has three characteristics, okay? The first one is that it's a medium of exchange. It means that we no longer have to barter one thing for another. I have a really cool stuffed monkey named George. My childhood monkey, I found him, we just cleaned out my parents' closet, and I found him in my childhood bedroom. Turns out it's worth a lot of money, worth thousands of dollars, because it's a rare stuffed monkey named George. I think he's cool, but you might not. And I probably couldn't give you George in exchange for your car. But there are other people on eBay that will pay me a lot of money for George, and I can sell George to them if I want to, and give you money for your car. So mediums of exchange are very important, right? The second function of money is that it's a unit of account, right? It's a way for us to keep track of value. So I fly on an airline, I have my Delta Sky Miles, I know how many I have, they're there, and then I know I can exchange them for future airfare. So it's also a medium of exchange. And the third function of currency, this is the most controversial of them, the one that cryptocurrencies haven't quite figured out yet, is that it should be a store of value, right? Everything that I own, I can't take with me. I can't have it with me here. So I need places to put value. I need to be able to store value in different places. And cryptocurrencies have never become a stable store of value. They're very volatile, right? So storing value is not easy. I have value stored on my coffee, on my Starbucks coffee account. I know there's value there, but you know what? Starbucks just devalued my points on that because they control all of that, right? And then money can be devalued because we can just print more of it, right? Inflation devalues our money. So when money is issued by a central authority, they really control everything about it. They can make more, they can take it back, they can determine its value. And that third point right there really brings me to where crypto came from in the first place. So there was a desire to sort of solve that problem, and there was a movement towards decentralization. And I think this is a movement that's a broader movement in our world today, a movement towards decentralization, where people began to want to have communities in which they had control over the exchange of value and created new currencies where it could be exchanged on a peer-to-peer basis. So, when you use a credit card, when you use any form of digital currency, that's actually an incredibly complex transaction that goes through a clearinghouse. It's a very centralized transaction. What cryptocurrency does is it allows peer-to-peer exchange in a digital format directly from me to you, and it's secured by cryptography. So quite simply, cryptocurrency is digital money, digital currency, where the exchange is secured by cryptography, and usually the supply of money itself is determined through cryptography or through a protocol. That means that it's not up to the will of a single person, like a central bank, to decide when to make more or less or what to do with it, like raise interest rates, which affects the value of the money. So it really arose from this desire, I think, to form communities based on trust. We could have a communion liberation currency right now. We could create a cryptocurrency for this community by the end of the day. We could use it to buy the gelato out in the hall. I don't think anybody out on the streets would accept it from me. I probably couldn't go buy a pizza with it. But we could all agree that we were going to use that cryptocurrency to exchange. And the cryptography, the math, is the thing that keeps it secure on a peer-to-peer basis so that it doesn't need to go through one of these central clearinghouses. So that's the technical, just to answer your question directly, that's the technical part of it. But what's really going on here, right, which is the name of this session. So I like to think of reality in layers. And one of the panelists last night, I think it was Father Alex, he was admiring how Pope Benedict seemed to see levels and layers of reality that other people didn't. And I thought that was a beautiful sort of way to think about it. And if we think about the layers of cryptocurrency, we need to go a lot deeper than what we read about in the news. We hear Bitcoin and Ethereum and the bubbles and the volatility and the price. That's just the surface layer, okay? Even in the crypto world and the blockchain world, we speak of layers. Like layer 0 is a technical protocol layer. Layer 1, there's different things built on top of it, and layer 3 might be apps, and those are the only things that you see. But all of reality has these different layers that we can look at. And layer 0 for cryptocurrency, in my opinion, layer 0 is a social layer. It has to do with the way that humans want to enter into relationships and interact. So it has to do with some fundamental human desire for freedom, right? Freedom to sort of have sort of more autonomy over the things that we have. It's a desire for trust, because there has been a loss of trust in many institutions. So this movement to create cryptocurrencies arose from that. Remember, it was around 2008 when cryptocurrencies began to become popular, when Bitcoin was created. Right? There's a white paper, but all the way back in the 80s, that explains the idea for cryptocurrency, a guy named David Chaum, Hashcash, eCash. But it wasn't until 2008 that we started to take it seriously, because we all know what happened in 2008. There was a loss of trust in the institutions. So there's some deep human desire for community, for trust, for freedom, to be able to have things that we can exchange, that are not subject to manipulation, that can't be stolen, that can't be taken away, where there's trust built into the transaction. So I think there's some fundamental human need there, perhaps misplaced in the sort of the frenzy around cryptocurrencies. Right? I think of the parable of the 10 virgins, right? The wise and the foolish virgins. That's a story about a sort of a transaction, right? The wise virgins had something that the foolish ones didn't have, and they were not able to give it to them, right? Because they had something that could not be exchanged or transacted. They had a relationship, right? They had a relationship with the bridegroom. They had faith. So there's something that we're looking for in cryptocurrencies, it seems to me, that is something deeply human. And I always ask the question, well, what's it for? I mean, nobody wants Bitcoin, right? And that's part of what got us into trouble, is that people started accumulating certain cryptocurrencies for the thing itself. But it's a means to an end. And I think we have to ask, like, what are we seeking, and what possibilities does something like cryptocurrency hold for us? And I think that it does hold a lot of promise if we can get beyond the thing itself, which is this currency secured by cryptography, which is cool from a technical perspective. I geeked out on this stuff for the last few years and read every white paper I could get my hands on. But all of the technical discussion that I see, all of the long white papers that are written about how there's thousands of cryptocurrencies, about how each one works, seems to obscure something deeper, which is why do we feel the need to adopt a different measure of value in the first place? Could it be because the ones that we're currently using aren't working? Do we need to feel more secure in our communities? So these are the questions I'd like to raise, and I'm not going to even try to attempt to answer them right now, but it has to do with some fundamental human desire.
That's good.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's good.
That was helpful. I do understand it a little better now. Thank you. And you brought up trust, so let's begin there, because I think that's something that all three things, and I officially absolve you from your need to talk about your individual things. You can broaden out.
Thank God.
Thank you. So yeah, but trust is very important because, for instance, with crypto, we've seen like trust can be broken in a second. And Cezanne, you're asking people to give them their trust to you, and we know the metaverse is a place like I can't even imagine what role trust plays in there. So I'd like you to talk about that a little bit more. Like, what criteria should we use to give our trust to influencers, to the metaverse, to cryptocurrencies, and also like what responsibilities do creators have and builders have to meet that need for trust that Luke was talking about?
I'll just quickly say that I think the most important thing for me personally as a consumer, and even on the other side when I'm trying to get people to swipe up or click the links and all that, you know, what you realize is we all want transparency. I think that's what ultimately gives people your trust, is like how transparent and honest can you be. And I think we're living in a world today where we've gotten smarter. Like, we can see through a lot of fluff and a lot of crap. And at the end of the day, I think everyone has to discern what in their hearts is like ultimately the right thing based on your own personal values and beliefs and ideologies. But for me, what I've seen with being a creator, it's been just being authentic, you know, being as real as you can possibly be with the people that are ultimately the community that you're trying to nurture. It's just like my children, you know, I really, they are the influencers in my life because they're following me around all day, and I realize while I have these millions of followers, I got 2 followers every day that are watching me and seeing what I'm doing, and that relationship has to be there. And I think relationship is what opens the door where you can feel like you can trust, you know. And so I want my kids to know that I'm not going to be the perfect mom, and I'm same for my community online. I'm not going to be that perfect, I guess, influencer, but I just would hope that when I stumble and I fall, I'm like, I hope my kids see that, like, that's normal, and you can walk through life with humility, because that creates that transparency that they also need to have in their lives. So I would say transparency is probably a really important thing for me, at least when it comes to building and accepting that trust.
So like transparency, authenticity, realism, in the metaverse, as you were talking about, what does that mean there?
Yeah, I mean, so pretty much same. I mean, transparency is the one thing. Is crypto, is social, or is metaverse, or any other new technology. Transparency is the key. Now, here transparency means that how open the metaverse builders are, how much information they're providing in terms of what they're going to collect from the consumers, right? We know what kind of data is collected from consumers from social media. We know about that. But in terms of metaverse, you are fully exposed. Your avatars is in the digital domain, and all point of data, your sensory data, your demographic characteristics, your physical environment, because you are wearing the headsets, everything, all those data will be filtering through in their systems. And they will be making decisions in terms of advertising, marketing, and many other things based on that. How open these builders going to be to tell their audience that what they are collecting and what purpose they are using that, and also how consistently they are doing it.
Yeah.
So that's also very important. If the different messages pass to different places, there is inconsistency. People are not going to be able to trust. That very, very important. Second thing, as a consumer, if something wrong happened, who is accountable? So the transparency is one thing, but the accountability must be there. And who we talking about accountable? Is builders, those who operate metaverse. They will be one who need to take accountability. And somewhere there should be governance mechanism that actually make hold of them to do so. Now, other things are, like any environment, here you are comfortable, right? Why? Because you don't worry about any, you don't have any fear that something wrong happens. And you don't fear that someone actually snooping around you here in this room. Same thing in the digital world. You need to feel secure. So your security is very important, particularly in metaverse. So you are digitally present, all your data is there. If someone hacks your data, what will happen? You are fully in their control. You are fully in their control. And it's not social media, you can walk away. And it will have little damage. There are evidences that when these kind of things happens in the virtual environment in metaverse, that can impact you, actually, physically. So the loss of cyberbullying, harassment, sexual abuse, these are, I mean, if you're not part of it, you probably don't know, but these are common things that are already happening in metaverse. And those scars generally left, even if the people don't want to go metaverse, they are vulnerable to that. They feel intimidated, okay? So those things, so safety, security, privacy, I mean, your data is just by going. Where is going? Who is having that? You don't know about it. Now, there is other things. There is a concept of diminished reality. I don't know if you know or not. The concept of diminished reality. So, augmented reality means AR devices, they can block out some of the reality from the things. So if someone actually hack your system, they can take you anywhere. You would not know where you're going. You will go somewhere, okay? And it might be the case that you are on the road. You feel that the road is fully clear, but it's not. There is traffic in front of you. You collide. So the concept of diminished reality, there are vulnerability, there are security issues, and there are danger associated with it. So trust cannot be built unless you create the sense of security and safety within that digital environment. That's the most important thing, I must say. Yeah.
And Luke, you have a lot of thoughts about this, so I want you to just invite you to dive right in there. What do you think about, like, what criteria do we use for how
yeah, I mean, the word credentialing is used all the time in cryptocurrency markets. Like, the systems have certain credentialing components, things called proof of work, that are supposed to build trust in the platform, in the blockchain or the cryptocurrency. And that's fascinating because credentialing, has to do with the word credo, which means to believe. So I worry that we're outsourcing in cryptocurrencies, we're outsourcing the way that humans must build trust with each other in human encounters to math, to cryptography, because it seems like maybe we've given up on that hard process of building trust between two people. I meet you, I look into your eyes, I start to see congruence between what you say and what you do, and I begin to develop belief and trust in you as a person, that you are who you say you are. And I think when we outsource that or we delegate the trust building to an algorithm, we run into problems. And we sort of need to get back to having human encounters and developing trust between two people. I mean, I don't think a child doesn't learn metaphysics through reading textbooks. He learns it by looking into his father's eyes during a thunderstorm. That's right. And realizing that everything's going to be okay, and he's loved, and the world is good. And that looking into another person's eyes is something we haven't had a chance to do as much as usual over the last few years. And maybe cryptography has been, one of my worries at least, is that it's been a way to avoid the hard work and responsibility of earning other people's trust and being able to see in them somebody that we're willing to take a risk on. Right? It's like almost as if we want to eliminate all risk from human life. And without there's no love. There can be no love without actually taking a risk on somebody.
Thank you.
That's good.
So we could have, there are many phenomena we could have picked. These three are kind of really in public consciousness right now. And whenever anything new comes along, particularly cryptocurrencies and the metaverse, there's a bit of hype involved, you know? But everyone is going to these things, like people go to your channels because they're looking for something. Everyone has a need, right? That we have needs that we're wanting to meet with these things. So one of my questions is, do we ask more? Like, do your followers ask more from you can give? Do people look for more in the metaverse? Do people, when they're looking for cryptocurrencies, are they looking for more than these things can give us? You know, and what are the perils when that happens? Or, you know, how can these needs be met in an adequate way through these phenomena? And whoever wants to start off there.
I'll just say that I think that some of the dangers with today's social media, I mean, for me, you know, you saw TikTok sprout up during the pandemic and everybody felt like it's a new platform, it's booming, got to go run and be on there. In order to be relevant, there's this lie that says you have to go run and chase that next thing because it is where people's attention spans are going and where the hype is. And with that as a creator too, for me, where I've struggled sometimes is like you see content that you know is like easily viral. Like if I create this video, it's gonna get so many views. But then when you actually look at that piece of content, it's not as meaningful as like what you naturally want to put out. But then you feel discouraged because you're like, well, the stuff that I want to put out there, it's like they're hiding it from my followers and they're not even showing them the good stuff, you know? So then society feels like they have to push that style of content because everybody else is doing it. And then now you're in the web of, I think, overconsumption. And there's times where I open up my Instagram app or my TikTok and I think about like how I have been infinitely scrolling for the past 20 minutes and I'll look up and you're like, where did the time go? And I've found that that's actually a pretty scary place to be because what's happening is just like you said, it's taking you away from the real life moments and the good in your life that you can look up and see, but you miss out on those little moments when you get so overconsumed. So I think we all have to find our own unique rhythm and pace in these spaces and not feel motivated by the hype and the momentum because ultimately that's like a fire that will smoke out real quick. You know, what keeps your audience, it's like brick by brick. It's a daily relationship that you're cultivating with your audience, you know, your customers. And so you can't get too caught up in that stuff, but it's good to see that it's there, but to always stay focused on your why. And I think a lot of people don't know what their why is when they step out onto these platforms and they're just like seeing the followers go up and they're consumed in the content and the comments. And I think it's really important to take a step back and check your heart constantly if you are a creator and to ask yourself, okay, what's in it for them, the audience, but also is this feeding my soul? You know, do I need to take a step back and change my rhythm a little bit because I'm a new mom right now? Like I can't be throwing out this many videos. It doesn't feel natural. And I think sometimes social media is that danger. You feel like you have to put out everything and do the most, but then you're missing out on the now, which is like the simple moments in our day. And those are beautiful moments that I think we need to be present for.
Yeah. Yagesh? Beautiful. What do you think?
Shall I?
Think, go ahead.
Yeah. Obviously, whenever something new comes, we think that that's going to solve all our problems, right? Yeah. And in that sense, we invest a lot of our time, our money, our effort, and if that doesn't happen, then obviously it may bring lots of consequences for individuals. And that's the danger with metaverse. Lots of, like, what happens with crypto? Lots of people hugely invested on it. Their life revolved around it, and sometimes went up, high feeling, and then it went down. Very bad feeling. And that's in metaverse, that we can see that because nobody knows how it will turn out. If people are going to invest a lot of time, that may bring disappointments. That's the important thing to think of. Addiction. I mean, those has little kids, and those kids, if they're playing immersive games, you probably know what that means. There is a big danger of addictions and dependence on these virtual environments. And more time you spend on within these environments, the problem is that your feeling of being reality will be different. So what we feel reality, I mean, what we're talking about here, that this moment, for people who is immersed in that for hours and hours, for them, that moment is not this one.
Yeah.
That moment is within that environment. And that can bring host of mental well-being, psychological well-being, and physical issues as well. If you're sitting at one place, spending your hours and hours doing things in virtual worlds, what do you think would happen? I mean, lots of physical issues will arise. And that's true if you look at some of the gamers who are addictive gamers, plays hours and hours, look at the consequences on them. And the similar consequences one can predict or extrapolate in the metaverse environment. So those things are there. Now, one thing I would say, I mean, social media was something, I mean, most of the people we have had access to, right? Because if we had internet access, nothing more we needed, we had the social media access. Now, when it comes to metaverse, affording £1,400-1,500 or dollar device to get entry into the metaverse is a very expensive thing. It's not everyone going to have it, right? So I see big digital divide among our community, those who have it and those who have not. Now, if there are opportunities offered by these technologies, this particular technology, then obviously it's going to create imbalance with those who have it and those who hasn't got the access and affordability of this technology. So inequitable access obviously is a problem. And then ethical concern in terms of bias against certain groups, against certain people, male, female, younger, older, all those issues also going to be quite dominant in this particular world. So thank you.
I want to give, Luke, you've thought a lot about this issue of needs and people, so I want you to chime in the last few minutes we have here.
Yeah, I don't know if we're asking too much of these phenomena. I think we're asking too little. I think we're asking too little of them.
Yeah.
Just like the transhumanist movement. It's not that it wants to give me a new heart and new lungs to extend my life by 20 or 30 years. It's asking too little. I mean, we believe, right, as Christians, of this supernatural elevation and union with God. So I think we're asking too little of these phenomena. And actually, I don't even know if we know what we're asking of them at all. I think we don't often know what we want. We don't know what our desires are. And in times of uncertainty and chaos, we simply imitate other people, and we imitate what other people want. I couldn't get through the whole panel without mentioning René Girard and mimetic desire. But it takes our focus off of our unique and unrepeatable call and vocation, our personal vocation and call from God, as we begin to look to our right and our left and imitate the easiest thing. And I've done it myself. I was writing a book on mimetic desire and getting completely into wasting my time, like going down rabbit holes, reading white papers and buying cryptocurrency, and my wife has to call me back to my purpose and what I'm focused on doing and what God is asking of me. So I don't know if we even know what we're asking of the phenomenon or what it is that we really want out of them. Yeah. But they certainly seem to be signals or signposts for the deepest desires of our hearts. And it seems to me that we're kind of going through a process of discernment right now. At least I am on a personal level, trying to figure out what is my relationship with technology, what do I want it to be,
Yep.
and is technology actually helping serve my vocation, or is it taking me off the track of my vocation?
Well, that's a good way to wrap things up. We could have gone on for 3 hours. That was great. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, at 11:15, so very shortly from now, Luke will be available for a book signing for his book, Wanting the Power of Mimetic Design in Everyday Life. So you can ask him more questions about what he was just talking about. And that will be at the Human Adventure book table right outside this auditorium. And one important announcement. You are part of the New York Encounter, a place that welcomes everyone. We ask and invite you to give generously at our donation table outside the auditorium with a couple of clicks at newyorkencounter.org/donate. Your donation is tax deductible, and this entire event is put together with volunteers, so we really can use your help. And now please, I would personally like to thank our 3 wonderful guests, and I would invite you to thank our 3 fantastic guests.
So for those unfamiliar